He never begged, he never explained, and yet he ruled almost all of Europe. When Napoleon Bonaparte walked into a room, silence spoke louder than words. His enemies speculated, his allies assumed, and the world followed. But he said almost nothing. No apologies, no justifications, no explanations. And here's the strange part. The most powerful people throughout history all seem to follow the same pattern. They speak less, they say only what they must, and often they let the silence speak for them. Why? Because explaining yourself, in many cases, is a form of submission. It invites judgment. It gives away control. In this video, we're unpacking why the most powerful people, from emperors to tech billionaires, never explain themselves, and how that quiet confidence might be the single most underestimated form of power. Power isn't always loud. In fact, history shows us that the most powerful people often say the least. In this video, we'll explore why figures like Napoleon Bonaparte rarely explained themselves, and how that calculated silence gave them a strategic edge. You'll see how this wasn't just ego or arrogance, but a deliberate power move that shaped empires, influenced minds, and protected their dominance. We'll dive into iconic historical examples, the psychology behind silence, and most importantly, what this all means for you. Because in a noisy world, learning when not to speak can become your greatest advantage. When you explain, you place yourself beneath the listener. You are, in essence, asking for understanding, for permission, for approval. And that act alone implies something dangerous, that their judgment has power over you. Napoleon understood this deeply. One of his most famous principles was, never interrupt your enemy when he is making a mistake. But he lived by another, quieter rule. Never explain your own. When Napoleon moved troops across Europe, he didn't broadcast his intentions. When he declared himself emperor, there was no apology, no justification, just a coronation. He didn't explain his rise. He assumed it. This wasn't arrogance. It was strategy. Explaining himself would have opened the door to criticism, doubt, negotiation. Instead, he acted, then let the results speak. Modern leaders often fail here. A politician gets caught in controversy. What follows are press conferences, statements, explanations, and with every word, their power bleeds out. Because now they're reacting, justifying, submitting to the court of public opinion. In contrast, powerful figures who stay silent or respond only with decisive action often maintain control. Their silence becomes strength. Their lack of explanation becomes intrigue. From a psychological lens, explanation is a submission gesture in dominance hierarchies. Animals lower their posture. Humans over-explain. It signals, please don't misjudge me. But true power doesn't ask for understanding. It commands presence. This doesn't mean never communicate. It means choose when and why you speak. So next time you feel the urge to justify your choices, pause. Ask yourself, am I explaining to inform or to be forgiven? Because the most powerful people don't explain to be liked. They act to be remembered. Napoleon didn't just command armies. He commanded attention, but not through noise, through silence, through symbolism, through calculated mystique. He crowned himself emperor, not the pope. Why? Because it sent a clear message. I answer to no one. That moment wasn't just political. It was theatrical. It was myth-making. And myths don't explain themselves. They let the world wonder. As Robert Greene wrote in the 48 Laws of Power, always say less than necessary. Because mystery is leverage. Mystery creates space, and in that space, people project fear, awe, admiration, even divinity. Napoleon understood this better than anyone. He rarely revealed his full strategy, his full mind, or his full intent. He moved in silence. Let the rumors swirl. Let allies and enemies assume. That uncertainty made him untouchable. You can't predict what you don't understand, and what you can't predict, you fear. Now contrast that with today. We live in a culture of oversharing. Social media rewards transparency, vulnerability, constant updates. But here's the problem. Overexposure breeds familiarity, and familiarity kills mystique. The more people know, the less they respect. The more you explain, the more they judge. Power isn't about being seen all the time. It's about being felt, even when you're not there. Napoleon wasn't alone in mastering the art of mystique. Queen Elizabeth I veiled her private life in secrecy, projecting divine authority. Julius Caesar moved swiftly through political ranks, revealing little of his long-term vision. Only victories. Vladimir Lenin often retreated into silence before decisive strikes, letting uncertainty ferment among both allies and enemies. And when they did act, the world watched closely. They didn't need to overshare. Their mystique was their message. So remember, the more they know, the more they measure you. But when they can't measure you, they imagine you. And imagination is far more powerful than explanation. In every battle, military or mental, the person who controls the frame controls the outcome. Napoleon didn't just lead armies. He shaped the narrative. He made sure that people saw him not just as a general, but as a revolutionary, a savior, even an emperor sent by fate. And he rarely explained this transformation. He simply acted it into reality. When you explain yourself, you're stepping into someone else's frame. You're playing defense in a conversation they've already started. But when you control the frame, you set the rules. You decide what matters. You define what the story is about. When Napoleon returned from exile in Elba, he didn't plead or rationalize. He walked back into France, unarmed, and declared to the troops sent to capture him, "If there is one among you who wants to kill his emperor, here I am." They joined him. That's frame control. No justification, just presence, story, and conviction. Modern power players use this too. Think of someone like Elon Musk. He doesn't defend his actions in the traditional sense. He reframes the narrative. He tweets boldly. He shifts attention. He jokes through criticism. Whether you like him or not, he rarely plays by other people's definitions. Controlling the frame means making your perspective the dominant lens through which others interpret the world. It's not about lying or manipulating. It's about owning the story. And when you own the story, you own the power. Stop stepping into the frame others give you. Build your own. Speak your vision. Define your purpose before someone defines it for you. Because if you don't control the frame, someone else will, and their version of you will never match your truth. The most powerful people in the world treat time like gold, and they guard it just as fiercely. Napoleon didn't sit around explaining every move to every critic. He understood something simple. Time spent justifying yourself is time not spent building your future. He was famous for rapid, calculated decisions. He would march troops across countries with shocking speed, catching his enemies off guard. While others debated, he moved. While others talked, he acted. That wasn't recklessness, it was respect for time. Explaining yourself takes time. And more importantly, it shows that your time is available to anyone who questions you. That's not power, that's accessibility. And while being available might sound virtuous, in the world of strategy, it's a liability. Powerful people don't overexpose themselves. They create intentional distance, not because they're cold, but because their time signals value. Think of how luxury brands never go on sale. Scarcity implies worth. When a powerful person chooses silence, it's often not about ego. It's about discipline. They let their actions speak because engaging in endless explanations is inefficient, distracting, and often fruitless. You'll rarely see the most powerful minds getting into online debates, back and forths with haters, or long justifications. Why? Because they understand. Attention is energy, and energy misused is opportunity lost. So ask yourself, is the explanation worth the time, or is your silence more valuable? Like Napoleon, those who move quickly and speak sparingly often outpace those who over-explain. Power doesn't wait, and those who protect their time protect their throne. Power doesn't beg to be seen. It proves itself in silence. Napoleon didn't need long speeches to convince the world of his greatness. His victories did that for him. A battlefield won, a country reformed, a code of law that outlived him. Each result was a declaration more powerful than words. When you focus on outcomes rather than explanations, your message becomes undeniable. You don't need to say, "I'm capable." Your results show it. You don't need to say, "Trust me." Your actions earn it. This is the quiet confidence that lives at the heart of real power. It's not boastful. It's not loud. It simply is. People respect results because results are objective. They're proof. And when your life becomes a trail of undeniable proof, no amount of criticism can compete with what you've built. Steve Jobs didn't explain every design choice. He let the iPhone speak. Michael Jordan didn't explain why he was the best. He put up points. And Napoleon? He restructured Europe. That was his message. The more you explain, the more you dilute the impact of your results. If you win, win clearly. If you build, build visibly. And then, say nothing. Let them feel the weight of your success. This doesn't mean you avoid communication. It means you communicate through achievement. You don't argue your worth. You prove it. In the end, power is not in how well you defend your decisions. It's in how clearly your results speak for themselves. So let your next move be your loudest word. Let your legacy be your best argument. And remember, results are louder than reasons. Even the most silent strategists know. Sometimes silence must be broken. But here's the key. When powerful people explain themselves, it's never to defend the past in weakness. It's to shape the future in strength. Napoleon understood this better than most. During his reign, he rarely justified himself. But after his fall, exiled on the remote island of St. Helena, he faced a different kind of battlefield. History. He no longer had armies to command, but he could still command the story. From his exile, Napoleon dictated memoirs to his companions. These weren't desperate apologies. They were calculated narratives. He framed his wars as necessary, his rule as enlightened, his downfall as the result of betrayal and bad luck. He wasn't defending what was lost. He was planting the seeds of how the world would remember him. And it worked. For generations, many saw him not as a tyrant, but as a visionary undone by circumstance. This is the essence of the strategic exception. Explain only when it builds future power. Speak when your words will shape perception, inspire allies, or create a legacy. Not when you're scrambling to justify yourself in the heat of attack. The same principle applies today. CEOs write memoirs after retiring to cement their legacy. Politicians publish books ahead of a campaign to frame their story. Athletes give rare interviews when transitioning into a new chapter. The less you explain during your rise, the more weight your words carry when you finally choose to speak. Scarcity creates value. So ask yourself, am I talking to protect my ego or to secure my future? Because silence preserves power until the moment comes to speak for history. And when that moment arrives, make it count. You don't need to be an emperor to use this. You don't need an army, a crown, or a throne. This applies to you, right now. In a job interview, don't fill the air with excuses about gaps in your resume. Instead, lead with results. Here's what I achieved. Here's the value I brought. Let them connect the dots. On social media, mystery beats oversharing. You don't need to post every thought, every meal, every opinion. Let people wonder. Let curiosity pull them toward you. In conflict, remember, explaining can sound like guilt, even when you're innocent. A calm, measured silence can project strength far more than frantic justification. The point isn't to be cold or unapproachable, it's to be intentional. You choose what to reveal. You decide what's worth explaining. Start small. Pause before you reply. Let your results, your demeanor, and your presence speak first. The less you give away, the more power you keep. Because in the end, you don't have to explain your worth. You have to live it. Before anything else, type this in the comments right now. Silence is my strategy. Let's flood the comments with it, so anyone who scrolls down knows you're part of the people who understand this game. Power isn't always in what you say. Often, it's in what you don't. Napoleon knew it. So did Jobs, Musk, and countless others who mastered silence as a weapon. Speak less. Do more. Let them wonder. If this video made you think differently about power, hit subscribe. This is just the start. And remember, results speak. Silence echoes.